The Sportscast, November 18th, 2020. If you haven't yet, please subscribe in all our channels, YouTube, Periscope, and iTunes. It's actually called Apple Podcasts. I have to update that. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, you could subscribe and leave a rating. We're trying to beat Bill Simmons in the podcast ranks. I think he might be in Spotify. He might not be in Apple no more. And please leave a rating and a review. Also, we are on online digital radio. You can listen to us on the Sportscast app or on the sportscast.net. And on the sportscast.net website, we have all the news and latest articles. Pac-12 is considering or will be playing non-conference games, but that's for a whole other show. But you can read about it on the sportscast.net and visit us and also visit on our Twitter, thesportscast.net. No, the Sportscast 1, because tonight we'll be live tweeting the NBA draft, and that's what this show is all about. And joining us all the way from New York, Ryan Christa, a man that knows a little bit about the NBA.
I try to. I think my knowledge is more, being able to relay some of my college knowledge and hopefully translate it to what I know about the NBA. So I don't plan on knowing what's going to go on tonight, because the one thing about the NBA draft is especially this cycle, we don't even know a lot of the workouts that went on. So we really don't know who's interested in who and who. So if you look at mock drafts, they got after the first couple of picks, everybody's kind of off the wall because no one really can feel out what's going to go on, and this is really the start of a crazy, we had some trades go, trades being offered up here and deals worked out, which can't officially go on, I believe until right after the draft, kind of the NBA season begins, with the hopes of starting up in December. So you're going to see a lot of free agency. Tonight's is really the kickoff of crazy, I would say, 2 weeks of the NBA, where you're going to see some wheeling and dealing. So it's going to be a fun night and fun couple weeks.
The wheeling and dealing is definitely making a lot of noise, especially with the New York Knicks, a team that's very familiar with the NBA draft, and hopefully they have 3 draft picks tonight in the first round. Same for the Boston Celtics. So they will make a splash tonight. This would be very, very crucial, especially for the Knicks, for the future of their organization and their franchise. Tonight is the NBA draft, 8 p.m. on ESPN. The favorite is LaMelo Ball, but I've been hearing, Ryan, that Anthony Edwards might go into that number 1 spot.
Very true. I would be shocked if Anthony Edwards isn't number 1.
According to Vegas is betting that Anthony Edwards will be number 1.
Yeah, I think what you're going to get, I think Edwards is a surefire player. Unfortunately in this draft, and most every other NBA draft, your marquee players you've seen college, the players have been around a couple of years, they don't always get drafted high. The one thing about when you look at the NFL draft, Joe Burrow, successful season last year, translates and 1 pick. Anthony Edwards had a so-so, freshman year at Georgia, as he came in as a number 1 high school player, so it kind of makes sense that he'll be the number 1 draft pick this year because his potential is high. He just didn't put, 40 minutes of good basketball together, but, he's strong, he's athletic. At times he takes over games, great scorer, not a great defender, but that kind of comes in time, and it's, it'll be pressed hard into him in the NBA. But what you're not going to get in this draft, I don't think you're going to get a franchise player, at least right now. I don't see anybody,
So this is not a 2003 NBA draft or a 1984 NBA draft?
Absolutely not.
Or 96.
But, somebody's going to surprise you. Somebody's going to be, a perennial all-star. And and I think that's going to be an Anthony Edwards. So that's why you've got to take him number 1.
Anyways, let's start with our predictions of the NBA draft. Are you ready, Ryan?
Let's roll.
Let's do it. Number 1, the Minnesota Timberwolves, a team that once owned Kevin Garnett. They had a couple of players after that. including Derrick Rose. Who do you have going to Minnesota Timberwolves in 2020?
Previous mention, freshman Edwards. He's, good post player. Like I said, strong scorer. Could block shots, just not a great defender right now overall, but a player you can build around. I know they got, Karl Anthony Towns, but I think, Edwards could be a player who could, find himself closer to the basketball. Towns, his ability to shoot the three ball has gone forward. He's finds himself farther away from the basketball. So I think this is a kind of a good situation for the Timberwolves.
Anthony Edwards is a shooting guard from Georgia, the Georgia Bulldogs, a school that Ryan's very familiar with. Now, keep in mind, guys, LaMelo Ball is in a lot of mock drafts. He is the brother of the other Ball brothers. According to Ryan, he's one of the best ones, but we'll see where Ryan, has him landed. Second team in the draft tonight, Ryan Christa, is the Golden State Warriors, a team that won the NBA championship about 2 years ago. They're in the draft. I haven't seen them like this early in a while. Who do you have going to San Francisco?
I see James Wiseman, power forward center from Memphis, which it's hard to put him there because I think he played just a handful of games before he decided that playing college basketball wasn't for him and he was just going to work on his NBA game. So not a lot of footage on him, but he's an awesome athlete, a lot of potential. I see, I could see him being the next Bam Adebayo, though, Santiago. That's kind of, where my comparison happens with him.
James Wiseman is from Memphis. He's a power forward / center, a big dude. Is that what Golden State really needs right now?
Yeah, because Santiago, this is you go from one of the worst teams in the league last year because of injuries. You lose Steph, you lose Clay. And now you're bringing in, so now you're going to bring back those two players, Wiggins, they got from Minnesota in a trade with D'Angelo Russell. And now you got this high draft pick. So, yes, it makes sense to go after a big guy.
Makes sense. Let's go for number 3.
You got Draymond Green, that fits in, so now you got your center.
True. He needs a support in the backcourt. No, in the middle. What's it called? In the paint.
Yeah, I'm saying, yeah.
Number 3, Charlotte Hornets, the Michael Jordans, the team that wears the Air Jordans. Who's going to join Michael at the Queen City?
I think this is where it's tough because I think Wiseman and Edwards solidify themselves as a top 2 prospects. This is where it's going to get a little bit tricky. I kind of like this guy. I'm not very familiar with the international people, but just doing some research and listening to experts. Denny Avdija from Israel, a 6'9" guy who's got literally no body fat and no muscle, unfortunately for him. Lengthy guy, he's been playing professional in Israel for a couple of years.
Maccabi Tel Aviv.
Definitely a guy who's definitely a prospect and one of those people, if you can hit on him, he's a starter for years. He's also got the ability to flop and never translate into the NBA. But I think the potential here is too great to miss out. So I'm going to have him going to the Hornets. Denny
Avdija, as I said before, is from Maccabi Tel Aviv, has professional experience. He's a small forward, power forward, so definitely a great potential for the Hornets. As Ryan and I were talking off air this morning, the international players have a whole lot of weight this past couple years. So for sure, looking internationally is something that is considered in the NBA draft. Let's go to number 4, Chicago Bulls, a team that was owned by one of the greatest. I mean, not owned, but he played there, Michael Jordan. A team that needs to be revived. Hired a new coach this past offseason. Ryan Christa, who will be the lucky gentleman to perhaps take this franchise to the next level?
This is where you find your aforementioned LaMelo Ball.
Oof.
So
the irony.
Yeah, they got Colby White from UNC last year, and you had LaMelo Ball. I think you got two players who are interchangeable power. Shooting guard, point guard. LaMelo Ball, instead of going, playing the NBA or college, decided to go to Australia to play professional last year. Had a good season. Shows flashes. I think he's a better overall scorer than Lonzo, but I don't think he's got the ball handling or the vision that Lonzo can have on his best days. But I think an overall better prospect than Lonzo is. So, but there's still a little bit of unknown. The type of talent you see in the Australian Pro League is not high, per se, but I think he showed glimpses enough to be able to come over to the NBA and have success, and I think this is a good building piece, to build around.
And as Ryan mentioned before, he has played professionally in Australia for the Illawarra Hawks. LaMelo Ball is a point guard, just like his brother, Lonzo Ball. Who plays for the Pelicans, or did he get traded? No, right? He's still with New Orleans.
That's still there.
He's still there.
And they just traded Drew Holiday and they brought in George Hill, so it looks like this will be Lonzo's team.
Something that we will be at it. Of course, LaMelo Ball, like you were talking about this morning, he is the best. He is one of the better balls in the Ball family, isn't he?
I just think he's got overall, he might not. I think Lonzo at times can be an okay scorer, but inconsistent. I think LaMelo will be able to run an offense, get people in the right position, score.
Something to definitely look at. The 5th pick goes to the Cleveland Cavaliers, a team that goes in the top 10 draft quite often. Ryan, Christa, who is going to Cleveland, to Middle Earth?
Staying in the state of Ohio, I'm going to go with the Dayton Flyers' own Obi Toppin. I think this guy, to me, he's my favorite player in the draft, because this is a guy who, went to mid-major, worked hard, and really was the best player in college basketball last year from the start to finish. Very athletic, great pass, great runner of the court. Reminds me of a young Amari Stoudemire.
There you have it. Obi Toppin, small forward, power forward from Dayton. Ryan says he's going to Cleveland, joining Baker Mayfield. Number 6 goes to the Atlanta Hawks, a team that's been struggling recently. Ryan, who is going to Fulton County?
This is where I think I was debating a couple of different things, but I'm going to go with, I think, Tyrese Halliburton from Iowa State, a big point guard, 6'5". So you got Trae Young there. I think the idea is to get Trae Young so he doesn't have to have the ball in his hands all the time. A player he can run off screens. So you get a good young point guard in there, and I think that's going to help. Atlanta's definitely loaded with trades and other draft picks up in the front court. So I think, the idea of maybe Nwako from USC seems ideal here, in the sense of being the best talent, but I think Tyrese Halliburton is the best fit.
Tyrese Halliburton, point guard from Iowa State. Ryan says he's going to Atlanta, to ATL. Number 7, Detroit Pistons, a team that is in disarray for a while. Ryan, which of these players will have a chance to get Detroit back into the playoffs?
With the leaving of Andre Drummond last year, I think there definitely needs a big body there again to help Blake Griffin out, and that's where I think you're going to find Nico Nwako from USC, a very raw player, Santiago, crazy athletic, but he had a hard time, being young last year for the college game. I don't think you'll see him excel right away for the Pistons, but I think a can't miss prospect and definitely worth the 7th pick in the NBA draft.
Anyanku Agangwa, power forward center, USC going to Detroit. Another big man Detroit's trying to keep. We'll see if those wishes are true. Stay tuned tonight, 8 p.m. on ESPN. Number 8, the New York Knickerbockers, a team that usually goes into the top 10 of the NBA draft. Ryan, will this be it, the final missing piece for the New York Knicks?
I'm going to take a ringer on this, Santiago. I'm going to go off the board a little bit. Definitely, there might be better players, but I think they absolutely need a point guard, Santiago.
Again?
They don't have. It's hard to win in the NBA without a point guard. It's like trying to win in the NFL without a quarterback. And I think this guy, he's got the potential. Not there. Didn't play consistent all the time. But I think you see glimpses of what he can do, and that's Kira Lewis from Alabama. Speed, Santiago, and I think it'll translate to the NBA game. And here's the thing: I think they don't have the assets to go and trade for Russell Westbrook. So you got to build in within the draft, and I think this is where you're going to find, the keys for the future of the team, and that's why I think they're going to take a flyer on a guy, and I think this is where you're going to see Kira Lewis come off the board.
This will complement R.J. Barrett, who got drafted last year by the New York Knicks at the 3rd pick. We'll see if that will come true. Kira Lewis Jr., a player that Justin Riley really admires. He played for Alabama. So that will be an interesting pick. We'll see how it goes. Number 9, the Washington Wizards, a team that Michael Jordan once played in. Ryan, who's going to D.C.?
One thing the Wizards don't do, and that's play defense. And a versatile guy who can play defense at many different positions is freshman Isaac Okoro from the Auburn Tigers, staying in the state of Alabama. I think this guy, he's a small forward, power forward, but I think he can guard even up to a center, even though he's undersized. He can even, he can guard a lot of different positions. Not a consistent scorer. Probably in the NBA, you want to put out a guy who can score. But you also, I think the problem with the Wizards is, they got Bradley Beal, still got John Wall. The problem is they can't stop anybody. And I think this guy will come in right away and add a defensive mindset to the team.
Isaac Okoro, small forward from Auburn, goes to Washington Wizards. The Phoenix Suns, a team that just acquired Chris Paul. Who will supplement him and the Phoenix Suns this year?
I think they need a wing. They need versatility. So I'm going to go with, you need somebody that, you got Paul, you got Booker on the offense, Devin Vessel, a guy who can complement Mikal Bridges out there from Florida State here. He's a typical Florida State wing. Florida State has got a history the last several years of bringing in these players that kind of all look the same. 6'7", 6'8", crazy athletic, can run up the court, high flyers, and I think that's what Devin Vassell can do. Because when you're Florida State, you learn how to play defense. And I think, again, the team that needs to be consistent on defense, he'll definitely add that. I don't think he's going to add the offensive punch right now, but I don't think they need that because they got plenty of offense. I think a defensive stopper to bring on, will help this team.
Mr. Vassell, Devin Vessel, small forward from Florida State, goes to Phoenix Suns. Number 11, the San Antonio Spurs, a team I've never seen in the NBA draft this early. Who's joining Popovich?
This is where I'm going to go international. The Spurs have a history with a guard from France. I think they might start another history with one with Killian Hayes, point guard from France. There's a lot to develop, but there's also a lot of potential. Just like a guy they named Tony Parker, who they drafted years ago, was an unfinished product, who ended up being a cornerstone of this franchise for a long time. And I think, Pop understands, a point guard can do that. They got Murray, DeJounte Murray, who's good. But I think that with Murray and Hayes in the backcourt, they could be a dynamic duo.
Killian Hayes going to the San Antonio Spurs. And you're right, Spurs go for the international flavor much more than any other team. Number 12, the Sacramento Kings. 10% ownership of Shaquille O'Neal. What direction will they go?
This is a tough one. A lot of them are tough, but I'm going to go, again, because it's the NBA and it's all about potential. I'm going to go Patrick Williams from Florida State. I know I just said, all the Florida State players look the same. Well, Williams and Faisal, they look the same,
It is what it is.
Same things. The crazy athletic, and they can play defense. Again, what's this team struggle to do? Making stops. I think in the NBA right now, most teams that have got enough offense. It's finding their defense. And there's no place you can really in the NBA to go find your best defensive players other than down in Seminole Land. So another defensive stopper in Patrick Williams. 2
Florida State players going in the top 20. Quite interesting. FSU is developing some players. That's good. Some basketball players. And lastly, Ryan Christa, the New Orleans Pelicans, who's joining Zion Williams.
I'm going to go R.J. Hampton, a player who was originally supposed to, play college here. He never ended up going, but he's a scorer, and I think the Pelicans tend to, they bring in Stan Van Gundy to be their coach, so that will improve their defense. But I think there's, as a front office, they always look to find that next offensive punch. Again, he went to Australia, like LaMelo Ball. Didn't have quite the success LaMelo did over there, but I think this is a can't-miss prospect who right now won't be a 28-point scorer, but he's got the potential, to be that Lou Williams off the bench and can just shoot the ball, yeah. And I think anytime you can find a player like that in the middle of the first round, you have no choice but to take them.
And there you have it. That's the top 13 of the Sportscast NBA Draft mock picks. We'll go over it one more time. The Timberwolves, Ryan says Anthony Edwards. The Warriors get James Wiseman. Hornets gets Avdija. Bulls get LaMelo Ball. Cavaliers, Obi Toppin. Hawks, Tyrese Halliburton. Pistons, Onyeka Okongwu. Knicks get Lewis Jr. Wizards get Okoro. Suns, Vassell. Spurs get Killian Hayes from France. Sacramento Kings get Patrick Williams, and New Orleans Pelicans get R.J. Hampton.
So this is all subject to a lot of change, not just NBA draft is known for the amount of draft day trades.
Yeah, especially today with the Knicks. I know they got a couple more picks in the first round.
Yep, you could see that moving up. And, there's certain teams have a couple players that they think that they absolutely need, and they're always thinking, how can I get up to a certain position to draft a player, or do I need to move down because I don't think like this guy is going to be drafted as high as we think of highly than other teams do. So there's always a lot of moving and shaking. There's always putting on the hat when you get drafted, knowing that you're not going to join that team. So because trades typically take a couple hours to process, so. It's always a good watch. I think it's an underrated sporting event because of there's so many trades and moving and dealing that happens. And like I said, this is only going to kick off a busy couple weeks in the NBA.
Things are definitely going. The league is expected to start at the end of December, so looking forward to that. That's why the NBA draft is being held this month before Thanksgiving, first time in history. The Boston Celtics have 3 picks in the first round. How significant is that, Ryan?
I think it is because I think that it looks like they're going to lose Gordon Hayward. to free agency / sign and trade. I think Gordon Hayward came to Boston to play for Brad Stevens, and obviously since day one it's never worked out. He broke his leg on the first game. And it's never really worked out great for him. And I think he's looking for a new opportunity because I don't think they expected Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum to be the elite players they are at his position. So they might use that to find trade bait later and more assets. The positions they absolutely need because, even though Gordon Hayward may leave, they still lack depth in the backcourt. I think they look to try to find some more backcourt help. This team's close, Santiago, very close. But the Heat kind of came out of nowhere. The Bucks will be there, especially the trade of Drew Holiday. The Raptors, as long as they keep that core together, they'll be okay. But who's gonna be that fourth or fifth team in the East? And that, the Celtics are at the point: are they gonna stay up there? Or are they gonna move down? And I think they wore in the bubble. They definitely wore down with the lack of depth. So it'll be interesting to see where they go to find those players they need.
Something to definitely look at. A draft could change a lot of things. History of the organization. Real quick before we end the show, what have you heard about Russell, Westbrook, and Hardin that potentially might leave Houston? Where do you think they'll go in, and do you think Houston has a chance to keeping them?
Houston management kind of leaked out a story, which I've heard from multiple sources, that they don't want to trade them. Either of them, they're willing to bring both unhappy stars back to Houston next year, or at least in this offseason, try to repair their relationship, with each other and with the organization. So, but the problem that I think right now is Westbrook is getting little or no attention because I think most people feel like his best days are behind him, and James Harden, while he's still kind of at the highest point of his career, James Harden's looking to join a team that already has superstars, so it's going to be hard to get value back in those type of situations. So I think
is it the Brooklyn Nets? Is that where he's rumored to go to? Or wants to go?
Houston's going to want a lot back for him. What is Brooklyn going to be able to get back to Houston without trading Kyrie or Kevin Durant?
And keep in mind, guys, Mike D'Antoni was fired by the Rockets this past couple of weeks, and Steven Silas is the new head coach of the Houston Rockets. So a lot of development there. Harden's been there for 8 seasons. Westbrook's been there just for 1 season.
I think there's 2 destinations for Harden that I think he would love to join: the 76ers or the Nets.
The Nets, Brooklyn again. Interesting. Another team that is looking good already. Of course, the debate of Kyrie Irving and everything else with chemistry, but we'll definitely be looking at NBA news. It's definitely steaming up.
It's going to be interesting, Santiago. It's like mid-2000s Phoenix Suns connection there. Steve Nash is the coach. Mike D'Antoni is the assistant, with Amari Stoudemire as also assistant. So interesting connection going on there.
And Steve Nash just got hired in the Brooklyn Nets, so there's a lot of good things happening there. Maybe a potential East run, but they have to go by the Miami Heat. Anyways, predictions tomorrow night, Thursday night football. Cardinals visit Seattle. This is another back-to-back great Thursday night football game. Ryan, Christa, what is your gut telling you?
The Cardinals, after that miraculous win Sunday, I got to go with them.
The Cardinals win. Cardinals are looking good. Seattle's defense is not looking good. They're breaking a little bit. We'll see if we'll see Metcalf at it because he didn't do much this past weekend. Poll question of the day. Who was your favorite Mickey Mouse Club member? The options are Justin Timberlake, Britney Spears, Ryan Gosling, or Christina Aguilera.
Probably Justin Timberlake.
And Justin Timberlake is tied for first place on our Twitter poll at 36%, tied with Ryan Gosling
Interesting.
And then Britney Spears is third, 18.2%. And then Christina Aguilera at 9.1.
Interesting.
And you have about 12 hours to vote on that on our Twitter poll on the Sportscast 1. Ryan, Christa, what is the best way to reach you online to talk to you about Rochester second division teams?
Mad Dog Report 18 on Twitter.
And does Rochester have a lower division basketball team?
Yeah, well, very, very low. Very, very low. I call the Rochester Razor Sharks. Minor, but semi-pro.
That is the price when you lived in Rochester. You got to...
Yeah, minor City, USA.
Unless you live in Buffalo, where there's one professional team. Anyways.
Two. Sabres and Bills.
Exactly. Two. Mad Dog Report. Follow his Twitter feed. Good stuff. Follow us at the Sportscast 1. We'll be live tweeting the NBA draft tonight. Looking forward to it. Something to look at because there's nothing else going on in sports. Tomorrow, this Thursday Night Football, Arizona at Seattle. And visit us at thesportscast.net, thesportscast.net, or or you can download our app. Also, go sign up for our daily newsletter, thesportscast.net/newsletter. You get the daily updates. First thing you get up in the morning, everyone checks their email. Every time they get off the bed and see who wins or loses. Anyways, Ryan, we got to go because I got to go eat some lunch and you got to go back to work apparently.
Yeah, I paid some bills.
God bless. Roll Tide.
All right. Good night. Good afternoon.